What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Collision Live. Daniel here, joined at the desk by the dark emo aesthetic to my teenage MySpace page, Mr. Samuel David Camp. What is up?
Taking it way back to the OG days of social
Some would
media.
say the glory days, back when you could go to my page and have like 3 emo songs play while you're there like, simultaneously as a full expression. Those were the glory days. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
This has been a busy. I know we had busy weekends, busy week.
It has been, yeah. And you've been off up into the northeast, the nor'easter.
I was gallivanting around with my wife. We went to Boston for the first time. Touring around the city, seeing some stuff that we've never seen before.
Did you see Paul Revere's house by chance?
I
or
did.
You don't care about American history because you're from Canada. And
I definitely saw some history.
No appreciation
in Boston. Some very historic clam chowder that was quite delicious. But I do want to share. I thought I would share a little show and tell of my weekend, just because I thought it was interesting. If you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago, for my host corner, I shared about one of my favorite paintings of Rembrandt, artist in his studio. Well, I saw that painting in person for the first time. I actually didn't realize it was there where it was housed, but first stop, me and my wife went to the Fine Art Museum in Boston. Realized this thing was there and searched through this massive library to find it.
It looks so much bigger in real life.
Yeah, like I said, whatever that was 2 weeks ago, I have had a framed print of this in my office for years. One of my favorite paintings inspires me, so it's cool to see the real thing. Another painting I did see, which is the only other time I've talked about paintings that I like on this show, I shared this one, a Thomas Cole painting. This is Expulsion from the Garden of Eden, one of my favorite paintings. I have a different set of his up in my library. Not this one, but this is maybe my favorite individual picture. So it was cool to see these things in real life. Didn't realize how massive this painting actually was.
I feel like that Rembrandt is more sort of what happens when you see most paintings, because like you're only used to seeing them online, like completely out of context.
Yeah.
And it's like you go to see the Mona Lisa or something, and it's like, oh, it's like a little note card that someone painted, and it's not nearly as big as you thought it was.
And it's cool because in both cases, I don't know if it's this because we went straight from the airport and maybe I smelled bad or something, but like no one else in the museum was anywhere near these paintings. Like it was just me. Had the whole thing to myself to look at.
Awesome.
So that was cool. Go to art museums. There's some cool stuff in there. But we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about this week. A lot of different news stories, some interesting topics. If you've never joined us before, welcome. This is our weekly show where we just sort of look at what's going on in pop culture, just culture in general, kind of the arts and entertainment specifically, and just approach it as Christians, have conversations about how we can engage and navigate this. I encourage you, if you're watching live, let us know who you are, let us know that you're watching, and share your thoughts. Let's have a conversation about some of these issues. Because there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Because I bet there'll be opinions.
Because there's always opinions, and we welcome them. You're free to disagree, and you're free to be wrong. But no, we welcome all opinions, as long as we're respectful. But we do have a lot of stuff to get into this week, so why don't we just jump into it with our first segment of our show. We have pop culture news. So a couple of kind of bigger stories that's going on in pop culture. First one, Warner Brothers announced they are making a live-action Hot Wheels movie, which is produced by J.J. Abrams, one of my favorite directors, producers. I thought we already had these called Fast and Furious, but I guess we're making for kids, Fast and Furious for kids. So I guess I'm looking forward to that. Another news that was announced: a movie coming, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is the an adaptation of the book, which came out, I think, about 2 years ago. This is the prequel book to the Hunger Games series. The book's okay. You knew a movie was coming because Hunger Games made a lot of money. So it's gonna be interesting. It's very different in tone for this book. Maybe doesn't seem to fit perfectly with where we are politically and culturally. So I'm sure there'll be some opinions on that. Speaking of opinions, some opinions that have been kind of making the social media waves lately. The next Avatar movie that's been rumored to kind of announced to come out like 35 years ago is finally coming out very soon. Avatar, they announced the title for this thing, which is The Way of Water. And the Avatar movie has kind of been almost like a butt of jokes lately that it's like such a successful movie, but no one cares about these movies coming out. Well, the first trailer for this actually is debuting live with this weekend with the Doctor Strange movie, but it's been seen by several other people out there, and it is getting this crazy good buzz that this thing looks fantastic, it looks amazing. It seems after years of kind of poo-pooing the Avatar movies, everyone's back on board and excited for this, so I'm excited to see this in theaters, this trailer in theaters in a couple days. Another thing, like I said, Sam's most anticipated movie, coming a little bit ahead of Avatar, the live-action Barbie movie. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago in the news stories. We didn't know what live-action meant, if it was like sort of like a Toy Story thing or like a Roger Rabbit. But apparently, they released the first picture, and it's just actors. It is completely live action. I don't know what that's gonna be like, how that will work, but hey, there it is. Live action Barbie means exactly what it should mean. Another movie that I have mixed opinions on, or a trailer. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers just released their first trailer, and I will admit that this is either going to be like the funniest movie that's ever been made, or it is just the most stupid thing I have ever seen in my life. I can't decide. I think this might be great, but it also could just be completely awful. And the last thing, and that was announced, they sort of rumored about this, but kind of made more of official announcements. Dune, The Sisterhood, a prequel series to the Dune movie. I'm assuming it ties into like the same vision for it and not just the intellectual property. But this thing is coming out on HBO Max. I'm not sure when, but they will be expanding the Dune universe beyond the movies. So I'm sure people will have thoughts on that, with especially Christian circles. But hey, I like the movie. I'm looking forward to that. But that's all we got this week in pop culture news. So what do you think then? Does the live action Barbie movie, is that what you were hoping for?
Cannot wait. Yeah, I think it just really hit the nail on the head, and I think it's going to be probably one of the greatest pieces of cultural commentary that we've seen in the past maybe 10 years.
But given what we've had in the last 10 years in pop culture, might be true.
Like I kind of hope that it is like I feel like it should be a spoof in some way. Like I can't help but just think it's going to be sort of an ironic.
And they're definitely,
I don't know.
Like
maybe
we shared last time, like Will Ferrell's in it. They're definitely going to be like a comedy. That's not, I guess, taking this stuff super seriously. It's like, the dark, gritty Barbie movie that we've all been asking for. Like, it's going to be some funny thing. I just don't know if it works. If you have Barbies, but they're just people, I don't know how that makes it different than Barbies. Or I'm sure they'll do something interesting with it. Don't judge a book by its cover.
We'll see. TBD.
Did you see the Chip and Dale trailer?
I don't think
You need to watch this thing.
Okay. I heard about the announcement, but I don't think I saw it.
I grew up with Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Rescue Rangers Down Under, the better one, the sequel. I don't know. This thing looks like it could actually be hilarious. Like, one of the Chip and Dale, like one of them is like 3D. He had like the 3D transition or whatever. I don't think that's supposed to be commentary on other stuff, but like where he was made 3D, but the other one's still like a 2D animation. So like it mixes, and they have all these other like sort of like the Disney world of like these other animated from like Little Mermaid, and they're getting captured, and like I don't know, it looks like it actually could be super creative and fun.
I feel like those kind of movies, like they if they're really like well aware of like their identity, then I think they can do really good stuff with that. But like I think the problem with some of these is like they try too hard, or like they're not really clear on what they're wanting to do with these movies, and so I think they have the potential to really nail it, I think, with what they do, but is yet to be seen, like what they end up doing with it.
Yeah, so I mean, this is now on one of my most anticipated movies, and I feel slightly ashamed of that. And the Avatar one, I'm excited for that. I don't have any opinions, but I'll see the trailer playing before the Doctor Strange movie.
And do you know with Dune, is that going to be like, I'm assuming that like Denny and Roger Deakins aren't going to be involved.
No, I'm sure they'll throw him as like a producer, or like I think there's some crossover. I didn't look too deep down the rabbit hole of how.
Because like the aesthetic of Dune is amazing, and I think like if it keeps with that aesthetic, like it's just going to be worth watching simply for that, like the set design. But yeah, I think that'll be fascinating to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, and I think like the story is like 10,000 years before the movie. It's like there's no crossover characters, I don't think. But hey, a lot of cool stuff going on in pop culture. We love pop culture here, so looking forward to that. But why don't we jump into our first topic? It's actually a topic that we've talked about before, like off camera, off screen. Just sort of this thing that we've both been kind of processing, thinking through, kind of wrestling with, and that's just kind of the idea of like rituals, kind of Christian religious rituals. We're not a very ritualistic culture, at least not like intentionally so. And I think kind of contemporary church follows in step with culture in that way, where we're very much more like expressive, and it's not, we kind of almost look down on a lot of these sort of rituals and stuff. And I guess the question for us today is sort of, is that a good thing? Like, is there still a place for kind of more ritualistic stuff in modern Christian worship? Is that all totally gone, and it's more just like the kind of the buddy Jesus thing? Like, is there a common ground? Like, have we lost something? So what do you think? I know this is something we've both been thinking about for a little bit.
No, I think, and again, I think this kind of goes back to maybe the Protestant Reformation and sort of when we split from the Catholic Church. And I think sort of the hangover from that is that we've sort of stripped away kind of, in some ways, like culture and I think some of the benefits of ritual that have been handed down through the years, and sort of traded that in for maybe sort of a content first approach to, how we do church, how we organize religious gatherings. And there's sort of this taboo or uneasiness when it comes to the more ritualistic components, I think, of say modern Western Protestant Christianity, that I think might be potentially detrimental if sort of taken all the way.
Yeah, because I think it definitely like ritual has like a kind of a stinky stigma in church today. We see it as like a bad thing. Like, and it's like we praise the fact that we don't have rituals, and we're more relational, and even like the kind of the popular slogan, which you hear kind of thrown around all the time of, it's not a, Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship, which Christianity is based on a relationship, but just the framework of that of like, it's either one. Like it's, we had ritual and that was bad. Now we have relationship, that's good. But you can't have both. You got to pick or choose. And I think it is kind of the result of some of that mindset of like, we do away with all religious stuff, is that, our kind of worship and stuff today ends up being very kind of based in like emotion, like very in the moment. Like, how do you feel right now? And what are you how are you going to express that? And it's all almost like kind of very individualistic of like, it's all about this experience and that's happening now. And there's not very much sort of order or like kind of repetition or things that we.
Yeah. And I think, you see that, especially like, our frame of reference is essentially the American church. And so I think it is very much part of the culture in Christianity here is to be very sort of individual, like, what's happening in your, worship service to you. And you hear, I think maybe they don't do this anymore, but I feel like there was a time, that it was like the, draw a circle around yourself and it's just you and Jesus, in this worship service. And it was all about like you relating to Jesus and not like us as a collective, as a community, joining together to worship. It was way more about like, how do you feel about all of this? And
yeah, it's almost like we've reversed, which at least I think how like worship like biblically was kind of established. Like you were saying, we've reversed the direction where it's like now we go to worship and it's all about sort of what we feel and giving that to God, but it's less of like kind of having the worship and the God like shape us. Like it's more kind of based in what we kind of how we're feeling in the moment, which I think results in like a very we're always like living in the moment. And even like my dad just sent me actually this morning an article, which I thought was interesting because it tied into this of like worship song. Like they did Lifeway Research did this study about worship songs, and so like in the 90s, like the average worship song had about like a 12-year lifespan, where like, a new song would come and then it would sort of be popular for about 5 years and then slowly trickle out of use. And they said like now, like in today's culture, like, the average worship song has like 2 to 3 years, like at most, and then it's gone. And like there's a bunch of stuff we can get into that like, probably in a future episode. But I do think it is reflective of like it's always anything that's sort of old, like it's always the new thing, and like how we feel that we almost like are wired now to like resist things that like, well, we've been doing this for so long. We don't want it to be a ritual. We don't want it to become a habit. Which I think biblically, obviously the two rituals that I think in most like Protestant churches that we've maintained are the two that Jesus himself instituted, of the Lord's Supper and baptism, which says like in Luke, this is my body, I give them for you, do this in remembrance for me, kind of, instituting like that we're supposed to do the Lord's Supper. But even those, like obviously baptism we do whenever there's someone that's ready to be baptized, but even like the Lord's Supper, which is like mandated or given to us, like established by Jesus himself. Like even that we almost seem to resist now. That like the common argument that you always hear about that is like, we do it, but if you do it too much, like then it won't be special. Like it will lose its meaning. Like so you only do it like a couple times a year so that it still has. And I don't know. Like does that?
No, I think that's certainly a sentiment, and I guess I think again that I think comes from this fear, just sort of a general fear of ritual, and I think even more broadly, it's I think a fear of tradition and maybe a fear of like what's been handed down through the generations, and I think you see that maybe just for a second we'll talk more broadly about culture is that we've I think there's this desire to untether ourselves from like our forefathers, right? This idea that like, forget what has come before. Like it's just us now and we're like the greatest generation and only we can solve all these problems with our new ideas and, new thinking and everything. But I think there is that mentality, I think also comes into play, I think, with the church because you sort of can't get away from that mentality. And it's just this idea that, if it was done, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, then, it's not really relevant in our context today. And again, this desire to be like seeker friendly and do all these things that really break us from tradition. And I think when we do that, we also lose this sense of community. And I'm not, I don't want to say like, well, if we just institute, X, Y, and Z traditions, then like you're going to solve a lot of problems that the church has. But I think seeing some of these traditions, these rituals, I think in their proper context and using them appropriately, I think can only strengthen the faith and strengthen, the body of Christ.
Yeah, because it is like a communal thing. I think even like the repetition, like what we see as like the bad side of it is like, well, if we do it too much, it won't be special. Like I think even that is missing the point of like the purpose of like a ritual. Like like the Lord's Supper, I don't think was intended. If you read like when Jesus instituted it, like it wasn't intended to be this like occasional like super spiritual high rush that like it was this is the most amazing moment, and as we did it, and we do it twice a year, and whenever we do it, it's just this amazing thing. We like. The whole point of like a ritual is that it's like a habit forming thing that like as you continually do these these rituals or these habits and stuff like that kind of shapes you, and it becomes sort of a part of just your everyday, your weekly kind of actions and like the way you think, and like it is very much, it's not supposed to be just sort of what we get out of it. It's supposed to be more like forming us and shaping us, and like I don't know, I think we've lost as the church like obviously you can like abuse that to like where everything is a ritual and it's just this sort of works-based thing, but like but you can abuse the other side. Like if worship is only just this like experience and it's all about you express whatever's on your heart at that given moment and it's spontaneous, like then you can also have like a very shallow me-centered faith that's based only in how you feel rather than like being shaped by stuff that like has that we do communally that is sort of outside of just our own emotions and like feelings.
And I think like the other side to if you look at more ritual type things, like they are sort of this whole body experience, right? So with even like with something like the Lord's Supper, that's a thing that involves your entire being, right? Not just sort of your vocal cords, not just your mind, not just your feelings, but you're like your body as well. So like you're participating as your whole self. And I think that is something that I think can only sort of come through some of these ritualistic type things that incorporate your whole self and not just like the thinking part of you or just the feeling part of you, but like, do something that involves your body as well. And I think that, again, goes to that formation aspect of it, that you do these things to sort of form who you are in Christ and not just like, to be whatever, some sort of rope. Sort of, just we do this because this is what we do, and like we've always done it, and
and even like the one of the ironies too of like the again like the Christianity is a relationship. It's based on or a personal loving relationship with Jesus. So it's not saying that it's not that we just need rituals again and we not enough of this relationship stuff. It's not that, but like the irony sometimes of like the whole like it's not a religion, it's a relationship. Is that most of the people that say that like then spend most of their or a bunch of their week like doing very religious like They have
Yeah.
like a quiet time devotional every morning from this time to this time. Like Wednesday night, they gather with their church and they go through sort of this program. And Sunday we gather and we start with an opening song and then you have announcements and then you have two songs. One's upbeat, then we slow it down. Then we have a communal prayer and then we have the preaching. Then we have an altar call and it's like everything we did is like we've been doing the same order for 30 years as a church. And everyone knows what to expect. And in that sense, it is, even if it's not maybe like a true, literal ritual that we do, it is still very much like a pattern and habit. And we don't think, well, if we sang this song last week, it's not going to be special. Or if we have opening music and worship, if we do that every week, it's gonna, we need to not worship sometimes. So we'll lose their specialty. There is power in even athletes and stuff, having habits and rituals that
pregame rituals
that actually helps the relationship. It's not either or. But yeah, let us know what you guys think about that. I do think there is something lost, and we don't do a lot of feasts as Protestants, things like Lent that the Catholic Church does. We don't really have a whole lot of those sort of things. Just sort of some of that structure that or even just the liturgy or reading communal passages together or statements and things. It's a lot of that stuff. We seem to think that it has no place anymore, and I do think we've lost something in just sort of that shaping thing, and I don't know, maybe almost bought into sort of this American, it's all about how I feel, it's all about me and this experience, rather than going in and being what will this service do to me.
And I think you see, and I don't know if we've talked about it on here before, but sort of this idea of the sort of the consumerism mentality when it comes to church, and we can maybe talk about that later. But I think that also plays a part in this sort of, poo-pooing of rituals and say, no, it's you say it's more spontaneous or whatever, but it ends up being more of I want my consumerist version of Christianity. And that ends up being very shallow and unfulfilling, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah, so I think, hey, let us know if there's any kind of ritual, if your church does do some more kind of ritual stuff. Again, we're not thinking all wearing dark robes and some kind of creepy thing, but just kind of things that we do that are involve more senses, or just different ways of worshiping that, or things like the Lord's Supper that kind of are kind of more habit forming and not just express what we feel like as we sing. We'd love to have that conversation with you guys. But another conversation that I know at least Sam would love to have is one that we are about to have in our next segment of our show. We have Host Corner. So this is my week to go, and I actually brought, I wanted to step up my game, and I brought a little bit of show and tell, or at least some props for this discussion.
So you brought CDs of metal?
Not metal this time. Let's get this out here. So I've been married, me and my wife are coming up on about our 12th wedding anniversary, which is crazy. And probably the thing that we've fought about more than anything in our marriage is a very kind of heated battleground of the tension between canned vegetables and frozen vegetables and which are better. So I thought I would use my time to set the record straight about the benefits of canned vegetables, which are universally, objectively better, as opposed to frozen vegetables, which are little more than kind of glorified pellets. As you see, if you're watching the live stream, at least the whole kernel corn, the canned vegetable, these are nuggets. You bite into one, it's juicy, you feel the texture, you feel the crunch. Whereas the frozen vegetables, you eat this, and this is like shavings in some wood mill. There's no juice to these. I don't know what happens when you freeze a vegetable. Loses all its juice, loses its texture. It's just sort of this very kind of pellet. So I thought I remember that time, but just to I guess as a case study here, I brought some for our table. I got a little bit of both. So we do have some canned, because I didn't want to just take my word for it. I wanted Sam to at least validate it, even if my wife won't. My wife is into these frozen vegetables, and I love her despite that. So Samuel,
all right,
why don't we start? We'll start with the bad stuff. Take a corn from there.
Cold corn.
Cold. It is cold. Maybe we should have warmed this up a little bit.
That would have been a helpful.
How would you rate the juice factor in that piece of corn?
No, it's mildly juicy.
Mildly. Next, we have some name, or I guess it's not name. It's great value. That
is a name brand.
Some canned corn. Try this, and just pay special attention to the texture there.
Definitely tastes more like corn, I would say.
It does taste like corn, and I guess you can't see this for us on the live stream, but the smell, you don't get any of the corn smell with frozen vegetables. You get all the corn. Maybe I'll keep this over here.
Should I
on it for our next topic?
Chew very closely to the microphone here for you, Daniel?
So I rest my case. If you are one of those kind of uncultured Philistines that prefers frozen vegetables, and hey, God loves sinners. God loves all people, the righteous and the unrighteous. But hey, if you have to choose, go with canned vegetables. Always better, smells better, tastes better. And I think I have nothing more to say on that. Is this a problem in your marriage too?
No, I've actually never once had this thought. I've never once considered the finer points of canned corn versus frozen. We've used both in our household, and I do think Monty is calling you out here, saying hearsay or heresy. Frozen corn is much sweeter than canned. So Monty will have to. This will have to be continued later on. We'll see you. We'll see you later. But
I used to value Monty's opinion, and I don't anymore. And I would say last thing, and we don't spend a whole episode on corn, but there is a misconception that frozen is this way more healthy than canned corn, which is not true. Modern science has actually shown that although it might be a little healthier, the difference is so small.
I do, and I don't know if they have. I guess there are canned fruits, but I think frozen fruit is much better.
Oh no, it's always canned.
Than canned, yeah.
I mean, go fresh, but if you're gonna go.
Well, we recently, the pineapples are in season, and I know we're getting way off topic here, but I got a fresh pineapple the other day, and we usually have canned pineapple because it goes on our Hawaiian pizza because we're cultured. But fresh pineapple is just night and day better than anything canned or frozen.
Definitely go fresh. That trumps all things. But hey, don't be a monster. Don't buy your frozen, thawed out, juiceless vegetables. Do the real stuff.
So speaking of things that don't matter,
speaking of juicy things that don't matter, we got celebrity gossip. So this is a topic I don't necessarily have a specific angle or to come at this for, but one of the kind of the bigger news topics in pop culture that's been going on is this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial that has been going on for weeks. This thing just seems like it never ends. We don't want to get into all the specific details of this trial, but kind of based on they were married for a very short time, a very toxic, volatile relationship, got divorced. She ended up kind of writing an article calling him out for that she was a victim, kind of Me Too abusive stuff. And he kind of lost a lot of his career, and then he's countering that, trying to clear his name, and it's just, they're just in the courtroom just sort of chucking mud at each other and all this details. I've tried to kind of tune in now and then just to kind of keep my, see what's going on. And it is this, it's crazy what's going on. It's like you can make a TV show out of some of that. But I did think kind of based on that, again, I don't want to, especially the trial's not over yet. So I don't want to, the point isn't to decide who was right, who was wrong, even if a lot of people in culture are doing that. But just the whole idea of this celebrity, and not just gossip, but this celebrity culture and actions and lifestyles. And as Christians, is there any value to being aware of this stuff? And kind of, just keeping our finger on the pulse, or is it just pure sinful, mindless, stay far away from this?
Well, I would probably say, don't get too close to it. I think it'd probably be fine to keep your distance from a lot of it. But I do think I think it's important in a sense because I think it just sort of reveals some of what that celebrity culture has to offer. And so I think that is interesting just because it's it's not everything is cracked up to be. I think is sort of part of my takeaway from some of this is and I think I saw this Jim Carrey quote. I think it was Jim Carrey the other day. He's he wished that everyone would be rich and famous and buy all the things and do all the things they want to do, because then they'd realize that wasn't the answer. And I think we, as a culture, idolize these celebrities and their way of life, and to a fault, because we think that in that there's wouldn't it be nice to be them to do this and to live this lifestyle. And, you know, I think this courtroom drama is showing that, in fact, no, like, I don't think anybody wants to be either of them. And I think there's going to be some lessons learned from that.
Yeah, because you definitely can, again, like the Bible, when it comes to like gossip, short version, the Bible says, don't do it. Avoid gossip. A bunch of verses like 2 Timothy, avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. A bunch of different proverbs talks about gossip betrays confidence. The perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates friends, which is Proverbs 16. So like as far as like gossip, and a lot of those are kind of more like, I think they're more aimed at like within a community, like,
right?
Like it's just, at least the 2 Timothy one, like it's not necessarily saying like a tabloid magazine. Like it's saying within the context of a church, don't be talking behind the back. So like, there is the sense of like, hey, we know gossip's bad, but also like, I think especially in Proverbs, like there is also like a continual thread of like you can kind of learn from the folly of like a fool, like the the destruction, like kind of like you were saying. I think there is value in one sense of like, these, even if we don't necessarily, we want to, like, I don't know if we consciously think that like, if only I could be Johnny Depp, then like I would be, but just sort of some of those like influence and like, popularity. And like, I think you can even see like a lot of like the Christian subculture stuff just ends up reflecting the secular version of it. Even if, it's sort of the more sanitized, but like we're still drawn to those same, like, to be a Christian influencer, like all these things that the world kind of values. And like, so some of these, like, especially like when you get like the curtain pulled back on like sort of like the it couple, these big name people, and say like, whoa, like this is, what a giant, mess of like a relationship.
The definition of train wreck.
So I do think there is some value in just sort of seeing, the I guess like the destructive side of like the things that our culture elevates.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think it just sort of reveals the reality. And I think the fact that with these, or I think now a lot more of the culture is geared towards sort of social media influencers. Like I think a lot of kids today would want to be like a YouTuber, or have their following on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And that is sort of, I think, somewhat replaced the more traditional, like I want to be an actor or a director or something. But I think even that, like, so much of what you see is fake, and it is only the best of the better side of what they want you to see. It is sort of a controlled narrative, and so I think this just reveals that, like, everything is not as it seems. And I think that's an important takeaway, that like these are people with lots of issues, and I think especially you load on top of that just celebrity, and it's like I don't know that people are really even meant to be celebrities. Like that sort of pressure and that sort of weight on people, like, can lead you to do crazy things.
Yeah, so take some of these, like the almost like the stereotype of like the child actor that like grew up in that, and like almost all of them end up just going off the rails just because like that's such an unhealthy amount of like talk. So I think there's two sides to it. Like I think the sort of like I think Christians are as guilty as anyone for kind of taking some of that like voyeuristic, like the glee and like ooh, especially because it's like Hollywood, so it's like they're the other side. They don't believe what we do. They're against what we stand for. So like when their lifestyle doesn't work, like.
Well, and it's also sensationalized too, because that's what sells. Like they're gonna juice up the juicy. In a sense,
again, it's way over the top, and it becomes a very soap opera-y. And I think Christians can be just as guilty as anyone of like almost like reveling in whenever like, because we saw that even with some of like the Me Too stuff, like when I think when some of this came out, like when some of the Me Too movement was just starting, like there was almost like a lack of just like the first reaction for a lot of Christians was like, Hollywood, see a bunch of perverts, like no wonder this is what you get, rather than like, oh, like this is a horror, like people are being abused, like sort of that like the brokenness and like some of that, like we sort of buy into the like it's just a game, and like it's not real people involved because they're just celebrities, and like
no, you dehumanize. I think is often what happens, because it's like, well, it's not. It's so disconnected from your life that it's hard to even think of like celebrities as people. I think for a lot of us, because it's just they're just sort of like out there on the screen, and like you never see them in real life, and so you can be completely desensitized to the fact that no, these are actually people who are going through this.
Because that is maybe I've already had my soapbox for the day with my corn. I spent that bullet, so I won't spend too much time on another soapbox. But I do think there is, which has always bothered me, like an inconsistency of like the church is constantly telling ourselves, you know, that like money doesn't buy happiness, fame, like that these things don't make you any different, or like. But then like whenever these rich and famous people like struggle or like it doesn't, they're not happy. It's almost like we revert to like, you know. Like we dehumanize them, like, well, how dare they not be, you know, they'd be unhappy and look at all the money they have, look at all the stuff they have, and it's like, you know, I thought we established that clearly doesn't help. So I do think there is that sinful side that we are drawn into, and I don't think Christians, even if it's someone that we disagree with religiously or politically or whatever, like I don't think Christians should ever just like revel and like take just a bunch of glee and like other people having horrible issues. But I do think there is some value in at least kind of keeping up with some of the, you know, not like, you know, who is Kim Kardashian dating now? Like, you know, what does Kanye think of it? Like, not that kind of, I don't think there's ever a place for like just mindless stuff like that. But I do think like because these celebrities are, because it's such like a heightened version of like reality, like it's like we know it's not real, but it kind of makes things public and it makes things so out there that like, I think there is lessons to be learned, or like even like with this current Depp Heard trial, like just the whole issue of like Me Too and like, you know, can a male be the victim of abuse, and like some of these like bigger, actually important conversations that have actually been going on for a while, but like just not getting traction, like because it's in celebrity culture. It becomes more of like a conversation that I think there is value to, as long as we can find, like navigate through, you know, the sinful aspect, the gossipy part of it. And again, I don't know exactly how you do that.
I mean, I think it is tricky, but I do think if we can sort of wade through some of the sort of peripheral things, I think there are going to be lessons and teachable things to come out of this, and hopefully, you know, move society and ourselves into a better place as a result. Yeah,
and I do think, like, in closing, I do think kind of the you know, the living like vicariously through the failure of like celebrity, like being constantly enamored by that, is this like the other side of the coin of like aspiring to all that, and like wanting to like I think especially as Christians, like if we're just constantly just sort of, you know, trying to keep up with how bad the world is and all the failures, and like, you know, look forward, who's the next head to go, like that is just as bad, if not worse, than like sort of that lifestyle that we're putting down. So as Christians, let us know what you guys think. You know, do you love a good grocery store counter tabloid magazine like Sam does? How do you navigate through some of the gossipy stuff? And is there value in Christians just kind of being aware of some of these the issues that come out in celebrity culture? Let us know in the comment section. I'd love to have that conversation with you guys. But the last part of our show, to Collisions, then we have This Week at the Collision. Probably the main thing that will be kind of this week at the Collision is the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's a tongue twister. The latest MCU movie, the second Doctor Strange movie, that thing's coming out on Friday. I'm seeing this thing on Thursday night. Looking forward to it. So we'll have a review written and a video review for that up on Friday. So hey, I'm sure most people are going to go or not go already. They know it's like MCU movie 78 or whatever it is. But hey, if you want to kind of think some of the themes and stuff going on in that, encourage you to check that out. Got some other reviews if you guys haven't caught it yet. We did a review for The Bad Guys, the animated movie, which I liked quite a bit. And then the Fantastic Beasts, Secrets of Dumbledore, which is another recent movie, which I did not like as much as the other movie. If you haven't checked those out yet, encourage you to do that. And we do have a new article that just dropped today. I think a relevant topic, kind of thing we touched on in an earlier Collision Live episode, but entertainment and Christian liberty, trying to sort of frame the discussion a little different. Doesn't mean we don't make wise choices, but kind of pushing back against some of like the legalistic way that we approach entertainment. So I appreciate any perspectives or pushback or comments on that. Always love to have those conversations with you. Anything else going on this week?
No, we'll just be waiting for the results of the Depp Heard trial with
in
bated breath.
3 weeks or whenever that is. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for joining us. If you joined us again, thanks for coming back. If it's your first time, join us next week every Tuesday at 2. If you go to the grocery store this week, make sure you get the canned vegetables.
Did you say 2 or 12? I think it's every Tuesday at 12.
Yeah, don't join us at 2.
We won't be here at 2.
We won't
but
be
you
here.
can watch it back.
But you can watch the live playback. Sorry, I was too excited to talk about vegetables again.
But go back and eat your canned corn, Dave.
Yeah, just leave me alone. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Eat canned vegetables and continue to collide with your world for Christ.